In this episode of the Business Broken to Smokin podcast, we continue with part 2 of the interview with Dave Quick. Go check out episode 046 if you missed the first half of this interview.
Sure, I mean, the list goes on and on and on how we can use this data.
Do you have any good resources around the hiring process? I know who is great. For who, as far as who goes, I've had to kind of like warp it a little bit for, because he's talking about, these kind of Fortune 500 CEOs and showing how they do some of this recruiting. But any kind of practical books out there that could be like a one and done, hey, you big dummy, get better at recruiting. Here's a. I
still think who's the best. And then I use a metaphor that I talk about everywhere I go, which is, could you find a better first baseman? And so, I apologize for anyone that doesn't follow baseball or thinks that, the stereotypical men's sports, but that's the metaphor I use all the time. And if you keep that top of mind and go, could I find a better first baseman? It requires this that I'm recruiting all the time. If I'm managing a minor league baseball team or a major league baseball team, I'm always looking for, is there a better first baseman? And the way I also talk about it is metaphorically, it matches the maturity of our organization. So I've coached T-ball. And if you coach T-ball and go, could I find a better first baseman? It's almost a joke. I mean, I look and go, we got to win in T-ball if I go, Timmy, you're playing first base, and he runs toward first base. I mean, that's our expectation of first base in T-ball. Now, if he can catch, it's a bonus.
Right.
Your best player's playing like all infield, shortstop, roamer, and he's going after every ground ball and whipping it toward the first baseman. And most times you just kind of turn your head and go, oh my God, I hope no one gets hurt in this play. But as we move toward Little League and high school, you expect your first baseman to catch everything in the zone. Yeah. And as we mature and go up, I expect him to dig balls out of the dirt. I expect him to save us 40 errors a year. As we get to minor league, major league, I also expect them to hit near 300 and, 40 to 80 RBIs a year. And so it's a heavy task. And I'm reminded of this. We went a couple of years ago to the Dodgers when they were playing in the World Series, and they had Pujols at the end of his career. And the fans in L.A. are going, hey, you fat slob, and they're screaming to him. And I'm like, yeah, that's because he's not now the best first baseman in baseball that he was for 15 years in a row.
Right.
And so, could you find a better first baseman than Pujols today or 2 years ago? Yeah. 10 years ago, no. And so I think that's kind of the way I've thought about talent, is that we just got to always be looking and saying, hey, that is the recipe to success.
Yeah.
And that there's no substitute to that. If you look across any organization, my own journey in running companies, it's, man, the better team I have, the better the results. Mm-hmm. The better the culture, the better the results. And so it is, can we get the right people in the right seats? Can we get them to act and behave? We want them to act and behave. All the work we do in Pinnacle points to that. It's, do we really mean it? Do we care about it? Are we deliberate about hiring? And are we always evaluating, giving people feedback to go, how do you get better? And most don't. So it's a long-winded answer. I don't think
I love it.
I don't think there's a cheat sheet for that. I think who talks about how to find them.
Yeah.
And then, there's books like The Advantage that talk about how to get the most from them.
Yeah.
That's probably a great reference on, hey, if you want more from a team and you want people engaged, lifting, doing the heavy work, that our people and our culture are our competitive advantage.
I like The Ideal Team Player by Lencioni.
Same. Advantage was a precursor to that, just saying, here's the... Yeah,
I think The Advantage is a great book. I've had a number of my clients, before they started working with me or as they started working, read The Advantage to give them, just to get them to kind of go, oh, this is what a holistic view of what an organization needs to nail. Yeah. Kind of the invisible stuff.
Yeah, all the culture stuff, which is, I talked about it in my own organizations, that we have core values and they're alive and well. And that, when I hired, I talked about them and said, hey, this is like Sesame Street. And what I meant by that is one of us is not like the other. And if you're that person, you won't be here. You won't be on Sesame Street. And so this is what we care about. This is how we actually act and behave. And one of mine was, we're all willing to sweep floors. It was an early entrepreneurial company I had, and one of our core values. And what I meant by that is, we'll all chip in, we'll do whatever. And I would take it a step further, and I would go, Mark, if I'm hiring you today, and one of our core values is we're all willing to sweep floors, and the first time I assign work and you think it's beneath you, and you kind of roll your eyes, I'm going to caution you. Second time, I'm going to say, if that ever happens again, you won't be here. Third time it happens, I ask you to leave and go, this is what we mean by that here, that we all are willing to do that without regard to our position, to our ego, we all want to win. And so we're willing to do about anything it is. And you see great organizations that do that every day, and you have other people that go, yeah, it's not my thing. I'm not going to do it. I'm like, great, go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the other side, is that most entrepreneurs get that, understand it. They're just not willing to make the tough decisions or hold people accountable for that fluctuation or variation from our core values. Yeah. And, I framed it, you have to be able to exist in our clubhouse. You got to meet the minimum standards. And if you just meet the minimum standards, you better be batting, 325 and hitting a bunch of home runs. And that if you're all-star but asshole, I'm going to ask you to leave.
Yeah.
And we want that, but we don't want it at the cost of culture. So you got to meet the minimum bar.
Have you read that book about the All Blacks? I've heard about it.
I have not.
It's just come out, I think.
Yeah, I watched a bunch of the specials and how they've gotten to there. And, clearly a strong culture, clearly from the grassroots up. I mean, they got all black junior, rugby starting at age 7 or whatever. So,
well, somebody at the latest Pinnacle Summit mentioned a book. I don't know if it's recent. I'm assuming it's recent. So I put down my list of things to be reading in the future. That's on my queue. But I love how experienced you are, not just as a academic in this, but you've used this practically in the trenches. Yeah. Coming from the various leadership roles in the Navy, et cetera. And one of the things I see and it just frustrates me. And I try to, this is kind of also separating owners from operators. And I say to a lot of my clients, I'm sure this is true of you too, or family business, either one member of a family or multiple members of the family. But there's this point where you're like, buddy, the business has outgrown your abilities. And it's time for you to shift, perhaps think about shifting to owner only, where you're not managing, leading, directing, hiring, firing, et cetera, and just go sit in the owner's box and watch your team and hire folks to run the thing that are better at that than you are at this level. You may have been a great, and I'll use baseball as a metaphor for that. Say, hey, we went from high school ball to college ball to single A. You did good there, but we're not there anymore. We're trying to go into pro ball here, and you're just not the guy to cut it, and that's okay. Good job growing it through those phases.
Yeah, and when we have the ability to influence that, it can be powerful. And as soon as you say that, I go to one of my longtime clients that I first met as a new ensign on my first ship, who I'm now dealing with his organization, and we're probably 7-8 years in, and couple things. First conversation I ever had with him is he was leaving a company. He was being sued for his non-compete and was going to go start a new company and was trying to figure out how to navigate that and wanted help. And, already he was framing, hey, one day I want to build a company as good as the company that I left. And I said, well, let's start with a different assumption. Let's build one better. And what would better be? And how do you do that? And, Culture Index informs that. He's awesome. He's a daredevil. He's magnetic. But over time, that lack of conformity creates all kinds of issues. And, one of the things I early said to him is you'll be able to create all the momentum in the world and all the chaos. And so who's going to clean up the day-to-day? Who's going to run the day-to-day? You're not the guy. And, at first he was taken aback by that, but he quickly understood that he can be visionary and he can be what's the next idea, and that all the things that we talk about in Pinnacle or EOS or scaling up or what's the discipline of what we're going to do now versus the 47 ideas that we talked about even before we started today. And that what he knew he needed was someone that will pick up those pieces and run the day-to-day. And he's been out of the day-to-day from about year 2. And the company's growing remarkably well. They're having great success. And it's because of that structure and understanding of who we are, strength and weakness. And again, Culture Index can inform that. But it's a self-awareness and someone that you trust that can do that for you. So if we get into business coaching, which we'll talk about in Pinnacle, I go, someone outside the organization can impress that upon you, help you understand it. So it's that understanding that, again, our strength is our weakness. And those visionary leaders that are nonconformist will have the vision and press forward, but will struggle with how do I manage the sausage being made every day? And they don't want to make sausage every day. So,
yeah. One of the things that you're modeling here that I'm picking up as you're talking is the ability, and I'm working on a book right now called, I think I'm calling the Pathfinder Playbook or the Visionary Dilemma or something like that. I'm sure I have about 5 other titles that I'm not sure which one. And I'll have more. Yeah, and none of them will end up being the one it'll end up being. But what's the day job of the visionary? Once they find that, well, so you see these founding visionaries, founding entrepreneurs that have this wild idea and they go for it and they push it and get folks to jump on board and they start succeeding. And then this shift necessarily starts to happen. And their day job, it starts to become unclear. And I have a number of clients that I'm working with to help them in that shift where they go, okay, now I know what my day job is, because they just don't know. I got to help them see it.
So this is something for a long time I've talked about in speaking engagements and coaching, and my own ahas career-wise as a 3-time CEO. And I formed it as, and same thing, book title is Harnessing the Power of Your Herd, something like insight from a recovering bull in a china shop or something like that says, hey, what the path to remarkable leadership for most organizations is really, in my opinion, 4 simple things. It's setting vision, creating and enforcing values, setting expectations, and then engaging like a madman or madwoman. And what most leaders do, particularly entrepreneurs, is they're good at something and they want to keep doing that. And what they need to get really good at is, what's the vision of the company? Where are we going? How do I want people to act and behave? And am I actively engaged in that? And that, am I setting meaningful, realistic stretch expectations and holding people accountable? And that my engagement is on those 3 things and those 3 things alone.
Yeah.
So in my view, it's a path to what I call lazy leadership. And it says, I'm doing the most important things, but I'm not doing work. And so what I'm setting is vision and values. Where are we going? How do I want people to act and behave? And that I don't tolerate things that are counter to that unless we change direction. So it's open to discussion all the time. And in Pinnacle, we revisit the Pinnacle or 10-year goal or whatever you want to talk about in scaling up. It's what do we want to be when we grow up and why we exist. Those are open for discussion all the time, but once set, we're pressing forward really hard there.
Yeah.
And that inside of that, we set meaningful stretch expectations and hold people accountable. And I think that's where most organizations fail, is they don't set the expectation, nor do they hold people accountable. And, people hear accountable and go, well, punish, hard-nosed. I'm like, no, you just keep pointing to this is the expectation, and that we're not meeting it. How do we meet it? What do we need to do different to meet it? And then the last is engage in meaningful ways. And for each leader, that's different and what that looks like. But I think that's the struggle for most entrepreneurs, is they were really good at sales, or they were really good at operations, or they were really good at the technology. And as they move to that true visionary leader, all that other stuff that they've been doing and were good at, they need to let someone else do. And that's hard. Many of us, including me, have healthy egos, and we have healthy, hey, I want to be the hero. I want to be the guy that, or lady that drives success. And what you realize is that if I'm driving success and I'm the path to success, then the organization is limited by my capability. And if you want to have something better than you, it's by a collection of people that are better than you. And that's another foreign concept that was hard for me to learn, that where I was most successful is I looked across my team and I go, half these people are better than I am at all the things I do. And, then it becomes, can I lead these people? Can I inspire them? And the way we inspire them is a compelling vision of the future. And so that's the other thing I talk about is everything that I've talked about in that vision, values, expectation, engagement fuels the magnet that keeps people wanting to be here. And the better job we do of fueling that magnet, the more compelled will people to be coming back to us.
Yeah.
And that we also have to acknowledge, in my view, and I'm fine with this, same with my coaching and personality and everything else, is that will also repel people. There will be a handful of people that go, that guy's a jerk. I'm like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
If you want my, no nonsense press forward and feedback, you're going to get it. And if you don't want that, and I get that from clients at times, like, hey, you're too pushy. I'm like, okay. So, same. I think that's a path for most visionary entrepreneur leaders, whatever, in air quotes we want to put, that where are they going? What do they want to do? And what do they want their company to be? And for many, they don't want to relinquish that. And they go, well, then you're going to be a $5 to $10 million company and you can make a great living and may or may not sell your company. Others that get that will assemble great teams and start to scale. And we all have examples that have done business coaching that then, sell their business for $60 million, $100 million bucks.
Yeah. Well, I assembled a pretty broad list of, and I did this actually for somebody, well, and that's what kind of sparked this. And there's a number of pathways that sparked this, but I'm going to read these off to you and tell me. You just rattle off a bunch of them, and some of these are 3 or 4 different ways of looking at maybe a core truth. But first one is, and this is again the day job of a visionary, if you will. So not so much the work, but what do I do now that I've got my 2IC in place? And a lot of our clients are coming to us because they're stuck. And one of the things initially I think we're helping them see is you're doing work that you're not so good at that you need to get somebody else to do so you can kind of narrow in on what your unique ability is, to use a Dan Coleman or Dan Sullivan phrase. But first one, the primary source of good ideas for the organization. So, hey, you need to spend your day out there coming up with some of these good thoughts, good ideas, right?
To me, that's the vision piece. So it's where are we going? What are we doing? What are we tackling? What's most important? It's all vision forward.
Yeah. Another one, think a lot. Like, what should I be doing every day? And I literally had a guy the other day, well, what should I be doing? I'm stuck now. They're putting me out to pasture. They brought in this 2IC, great guy, partner, whatever, but now they're saying, I just need to go away. Like, no, we don't need you to go away. We need you to do some other stuff that maybe you've done naturally, maybe you haven't. Maybe somebody else needs to do these things, but we need somebody to do these things. So the second one is think a lot. The third one, have lots of impactful conversations, with future hires, future vendors, future partners, future markets, future innovations, future acquisitions maybe, but lots of really powerful, high-level conversations. Next one, identify the ultimate destination for the organization and talk about it, and you've been saying that really well. Another one here is remind us why we are doing this. So we have this organization. Somebody needs to go around and go, hey, folks, remember, this is why we're doing this. This is why this matters. This is why it's important. Get people to see things. Like that's, I think, one of the most overlooked elements of a visionary is we need somebody. And as you were talking about Culture Index specifically, you were explaining, like, here's why it's important. And the team needs somebody who can get folks to see things, and go, oh, that's why this is important. Oh, that's what this is for. Oh, that's how this fits into our overarching truth. Now, get us organized around our strategy. That's a really big deal. Like, if we're not organized around our strategy, who's going to do that? Talking about roles, I think these are all roles. Attract the right people to our cause. Hey, we're going here for this big reason. So would you like to join us? Would you like to, this is almost like chumming the water in a sense of getting the right folks to kind of come in close so we can pick them off, so we can snag them for our organization. Champion our cause in the marketplace. So to be out there in the marketplace telling the story about, hey, this is who we are, this is why we're great, this is what we're great at, keep us in our sweet spot. So a lot of times an organization can drift off into these other things, and some of this may be the 2IC as well, but identify the pitfalls around us, to be able to kind of look in almost like in an innovative way and say, like the BlackBerry guy. So I'm reading this Think Again, and he's talking about the BlackBerry guy. I can't remember his name now, and he got like really stuck in his not his little world, but in his success. He was succeeding like crazy, and he missed, like he stopped paying attention.
Yeah, the world's changing around me, and I got the best solution. Like, well,
and the visionary's job is to kind of go, hey, there's this pitfall out there, and it's coming, and we need to think about that. We need to be, figuring out what to do as an org about that. Create clarity around our strategy. Here's why this strategy is a big deal. Here's how it's different from theirs or theirs or theirs. Here's how we're gonna be in a category of one, perhaps. Tell the story of the organization. Lead the way to the ultimate destination in order to say, hey, there's these different phases. So if we're playing high school ball, to say, hey, our ultimate is Hall of Fame, or ultimate's Pro Ball, or ultimate's whatever. Then to kind of show, here's how that progression might go from here to there. Pay close attention to the competition. These guys are doing this, these guys are doing that, these guys are doing the other, and so we got to make sure we're thinking about that. And then lastly, and something you've talked about, be the DNA of the culture, to really be the essential source from which this culture emanates. That's a big job. Those are lots and lots of roles.
Yeah, I mean, that's an awesome list. And the way I've thought about it, both for myself and others post my CEO stint, was I need to fuel this magnet. The way I fuel this magnet that compels and repels everyone, and you've talked about a bunch of different constituencies, is that I need this compelling vision. I need compelling and repelling core values. I need compelling and repelling expectations, and that I need to engage on those three things. The other thing that I said to myself all the time is that I need to do those three things, vision, values, expectations, until I see eye rolls. That I have to over-communicate all that. I want to be able to say it once and everyone get it, and instead, and I go back to one of my organizations, was we provide the best daily massage. And people at first, when I said that, were like, well, okay, what is that? And then how do we explain what that means, and how do we do that, and how do we deliver it? And this was a company called Hydro Massage that uses high pressure heated water to give massage. And that little statement changed the trajectory of the company. Been in business for 20 years, never profitable. First couple of years profitable, set new course and direction, which is daily massage will be given where. And they weren't thinking about that. They were thinking about, well, we're a chiropractic support company. We got a bed in the Mayo Clinic. I mean, they were everywhere. Instead, I go, we're where you can get massage daily. Home, gym, tanning salon, corporate, and said that's where we will sell. And we will have products that deliver the best daily massage. Mm-hmm. And, there's a bunch in that we could get deep into, but all of that was, I'm going to keep saying that until I see eye rolls. How do we deliver that? What does it mean? Where are we delivering it? How do we do that? And that, that whole new idea thing you talked about is, well, how do we develop that? How do we deliver that? How do I create that vision? And, I still talk about one of my riskier things in my career is I went to the private equity board at the time, right after we came up with this best daily massage, and said one of the early movers for us is gym chains. They had some business in gym chains, but they hired me because of my medical device experience and thought they could get medical reimbursement for the bed because they had one in the Mayo Clinic for cancer, we'll call it pain relief. And it did a lot for pain relief. They had a couple of these on the PGA Tour in the trainers' tents that golfers would get on before and after matches. But what I realized is that, we provide a massage for people daily, for people that want massage. And there was a bunch in that. Some people would never get a hands-on massage. And I joke about it and go, there are a group of people that want to get in a dark room with a stranger and disrobe and be touched. And there's a group of people that go, that's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. And what was awesome for us is we could meet the needs of both of those people. And this Best Daily Massage then said, well, we're going to go to gym chains. And where that led us is we're going to do an event at the 2008, the year Tiger Woods tore his ACL and won the U.S. Open. And we had massage beds at the course and at a nearby hotel. And we invited 25 of the top gym chain CEOs. And they got a little voice recording card from me that said, hey, I'm the CEO of Hydro Massage. I'd like to invite you and a guest, all expense paid, to a round of the U.S. Open. The only requirement for you to do that is that you have a 15-minute massage with us. And, of course, people looked at that and said, well, I want to go to the U.S. Open, and we'll go. Well, there was a lot of cost, a lot of involvement, a lot of whatever. And if we jump forward and look at what happened, well, 23 of those 25 gym chains signed contracts with us in the next 2 years. And that all came from provide the best daily massage. And so that's a long-winded story to go, that vision, and then what are all of the ideas to develop that, and how do we compel people toward that and explain to internal, external, this is what we're doing, lead you that way. And so all of those things, Mark, that you talked about, do that. And that is the job, I think, of visionary CEO leaders, visionary, your day job is fuel the magnet. If that's what I was going to say, I would say that's what your day job is. Mm-hmm. That compels and repels the right people, repels the wrong people. And that's to have the right team. And, often we ignore that and go, well, Bill, you talked about family, you go, well, Bill, my brother-in-law, has been my CFO for 22 years. Was it capable of being the CFO as we grow? No.
Yeah. A lot of times they don't even know how to say what a CFO does. It's or any other role, in that. And so as a coach, this is a big issue, right? Getting these folks that we're coaching to see broader, to get out of their kind of cocoon, if you will, and go, hey, you've got some folks in these roles, including you, perhaps, that may not be best suited for this. You got to start off with, well, what does this role require? What are the roles? And then what do they require?
The best I've heard of that is Cameron Herrold, who was 1-800-GOT-JUNK. He's been an author for the last 5 or 6 years. He runs the COO Alliance now, and heard him speak at an early Vistage event. And the way he framed it is he said, hey, we were running 1-800-GOT-JUNK or College Painter Pro, I can't remember which, and we were growing like crazy, and we needed new talent. We knew that we had kind of outgrown our leadership team. And we started interviewing, and I don't remember the lady's name, but he said essentially we were hiring somebody to come in and be our CEO. And she was one of the general managers or regional VPs for Starbucks. And he said, I'll never forget, she came in, and we're like trying to figure out how to do everything, and everything's chaos, and we can't figure out anything. And she goes, yeah, I'd like to work with you guys. You're a really cute little company. And he said that hit us like, she looks at us like we're just some little project and we'll nail this. And it's, that's the scalable understanding of running organizations and that insight that they didn't have. And they brought somebody in. They said, she doubled the size of the company in 3 years, and, the rest is history. And so there's that, again, if I go back to, could I find a better first baseman? At some point you're going, well, I got a high school first baseman and we're playing in the major leagues.
Yeah.
So I got to make that move. And that's hard when, and you've alluded to, a lot of these folks that we coach are family operated businesses. It's friends and family. That's half the companies I deal with or that scenario.
Yeah. If you could, this is a coaching question, as a business coach, if you could like magically, wave a wand, if you will, over a client, what do you feel like is the common missing element in we'll say a visionary or a principal in a business that you're coaching, and you're sitting there watching them going, man, you really, if I could just impart this ability? What do you feel like they're missing, generally speaking?
I mean, again, this is hard to do a broad scale, but people ask me all the time, like, well, what's the difference? When does Pinnacle work and when it doesn't work? When does coaching work and when doesn't it work? And so I'll talk about those two things as kind of anecdotally how I answer that question. First, I say, if you want to be a better golfer and you hire a golf coach, the golf coach can help you. If you don't want to be a better golfer, there's no reason to hire a golf coach. And so I frame it that way. If you want something better and you want to be better, there are people that can help you. There are a lot of people that go, well, that sounds great until I have to change, do something different, be something different. And what I frame is that you really then don't want to be a better golfer. Most CEOs understand that, and that I go, at some point I may say, it seems like you don't want to be a better golfer. What I'm saying to you is, I'm getting ready to fire you. So I frame that early in my engagements going, if you want to be a better golfer, I can help you. I just had this conversation last week where they're like, hey, this person's saying they're essentially done. They're 6 months in. What do you think? And I said, a lot of work to do, but if they don't want to be a better golfer, I can't help them. So that first component is, am I coachable? Do I want to be coached? And so we have plenty of people in our space that say that and want that, but what they really want is tips and tricks. They don't want accountability. They don't want to get better. So that's the first. And organizationally, when you start to look at these organizations and go, do you want a different level of success? Because if you want to stay where you are doing what you're doing, many times those organizations are remarkably successful where they're at. So, common coaching theme for me is 3 to 5 years. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? And so I make them answer those 3 questions. And, they'll quickly go, well, what do you mean? I go, it's whatever they mean to you. So, what do you want to be 3 to 5 years from now? What do you want to do 3 to 5 years from now? What do you want to have 3 to 5 years from now? And I define that in my practice as thriving. And so I ask myself all the time those 3 questions. Who do I want to be? I go, I want to be an awesome dad. I want to be an awesome husband. I want to be an awesome coach. I want to impact the people around me. I want to make my small corner of the world a better place. So if I'm doing those things, I can then look and go, that's what I want to do. And then what do I want to have? I go, I want to be content. That for me it's the place where meaning and engagement match, that I'm getting meaning out of what I'm doing, whether that's with my family, friends, work. And so I think many get away from that it's, I want something that someone else has said, versus I really want to make that change organizationally, and that I want to let go and I want broader success than where we are. And that's tough. I mean, you see that a lot of times at the point where you help organizations and they're ready to sell. And the way I frame this is, let's go list your house. You can always say, I don't want to sell it. And what you find is many of them that they're wrapped up in all of those things. My ego, my personality, my identity is all, I'm the business hero in this scenario. So it's that's a lot of self-awareness. That's a lot of questions. That's a lot of, do you want to get better? What does better look like? And I have, I'm sure you have the same, a bunch of instances where we look at that 3 to 5 year gap and we go close it. We have a lot that say they want to close that 3 to 5 year gap, but really don't. And that's I don't want to be a better golfer. I want to do what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, great. Yep. So that's a convoluted answer to that. So I don't think there's a magic wand. It's, can we help them identify what they really want? If they don't want what we do, that's okay. Go do what you want to do.
What are some common issues that you see these principles? And, we're using a term kind of broadly here, but the folks that have their hands on the steering wheel, the folks on the bridge, to use your Navy experience here. There's some folks on the bridge, and there's some issues with these folks. As you walk in, you work with them for 3, 4, 5 months, and you're like, I've noticed they have these same issues as these other folks. What are some common issues you see in leadership teams?
it's if I go back to my 4 key components for leaders, and we could spend, if we look at engagement, I'm a big culture guy. So if we look at Gallup poll the last 27, 28 years, of why people are engaged, and I framed it as that my team's excited to come to work on Monday, is the way I frame it. And that says, do they know where we're going? Do they know their role? And do we give them feedback? So it falls to those 4: vision, values, expectation, and engagement. And I see failures on all 4. So you will see leaders that set remarkable vision, don't tell people how they want to act and behave, don't set expectation, and don't engage. You'll have other CEOs that engage like crazy, that their people love them. They are beloved is probably the right word. Yet they haven't set a vision. They don't know what core values are, and they're not setting expectations. And so over and over again, those 4 show up for me and go, there's failure by leaders on all 4. And that if you look at those 4 as leader and go, where am I really good? You're going to find that you're good in 1 or 2 and you suck at the others. And that's common. And so that's where Pinnacle or some other system helps us go, I'm not good at those. Who can help me? And that those 4 fuel the magnet of compelling, stronger team all the time, better culture. And for me, that comes from this harness the power of your herd. How do I get more and more from the herd? And, many will hear herd and think that's like the, herd mentality. And mine is, man, I got powerful, passionate bulls, strong animals, both male and female. I tell people all the time that bull analogy and my own bull persona comes from my mom, not my dad. Now, I also shared that I wanted to rebel from my mom, but my mom instilled a bunch of hard work, drive results, impact people, make your small corner of the world a better place. So for leaders, I think that's the shortfall of those 4 things. Most are remarkably talented. They just don't understand, in my view, that that's the path to remarkable organizational success. They can be remarkably successful and live a full life, have a great organization, but it usually won't grow beyond them. And so I think that's if you look at E-Myth or other things, do you want the organization to be better than you? And many don't. And I think that's do you want to be a better golfer? It's like, I want to golf the way I'm golfing. Okay, golf the way you're golfing. So, there's a common theme for me there, Mark, that just says those 4 things are the essence of leadership. If we look at Gallup engagement, and for me, this whole thing becomes we're dealing with organizations and teams. This is my herd of bulls. How do I get everyone pulling really hard? How do I get everyone really excited? And that every year I look and go, should these bulls be on my bus? Should they be coming to work every day? And there's almost every year, that's the other thing most organizations don't do is this person still worthy of being there?
Yeah.
And most are. It then says, well, are we giving them feedback? Are we setting the right expectation? Are we engaging with them in a meaningful way? So those 4 have held true for me. And, they're similar to the Pinnacle principles. They're similar to a lot of other things. If you look at Advantage and others, that's just how I framed it. You need this compelling, repelling, all 4 of those. And that's been kind of the essence of my own leadership and how I try to help organizations, that this all fuels a magnet that brings the right people toward us or the wrong. And if we don't fuel the magnet, it doesn't get better. If we fuel the magnet, it gets better. Sinek talks about that, and from a culture perspective, and I love his quote. He says it's like going to the gym. He says, when you first embark upon this and you go to the gym for the first time, how does it feel? It's really painful. You look in the mirror, what's happened? Nothing. Day 2, how does it feel? Worse. You look in the mirror, what's happened? Nothing. 6 months of that, you go, I've fueled the magnet. The organization's remarkably different. And so that's the other thing I tell leaders all the time. This isn't a short-term turnaround. It's a long-term intentional focus on those 4 things. So all your questions hit that. All your questions hit to, am I doing the right things? And often they view it as, I got to go do the work. I got to go sell. I got to go be the technology guy. I got to go do whatever. And I'm like, if you're the top of your organization, you should be doing those 4 things. So.
Do you see those vision, values, expectations, engagement as falling onto one seat, or being multiple seats at the top, having pieces and parts of those?
I mean, if you look at, we'll call it senior leadership team of 6 to 8, all 6 and 8 of those should be aligned. All 6 and 8 of those should be doing all of it. This is the fish rots from the head. It's all the top guy or lady. It's all what are they? Because in the essence of an organization, it's that person, in my view.
Yeah.
So, but it has to be consistent across the leadership team. People have to be aligned. So if we look at pinnacle, scaling up, traction, that's part of it. Is can we create clarity?
Yeah.
Can we understand where we're going? Can we understand what's most important right now? So, and then, I think the classic entrepreneur, we talked about it earlier, is, well, I want to try 5,000 things. And instead we said we're doing this now. Yeah. Are we doing those things now remarkably well? And if there's a reason to pivot. But
yeah,
will this, again, for me, I asked myself all the time as a CEO, is this fueling the magnet? Am I compelling and repelling the right things? And that's an easier lens sometimes than even the results, which is, am I getting the right things here? Am I seeing the right people? Am I seeing the right results? Are we getting better? Am I compelling right action versus wrong action?
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is spending a lot of time, what I would think of as the two fundamental kind of activities of the visionary. If we bring this down to him or her, who is the DNA of the culture, and those two activities are, and this is something I'll say to a visionary, like, look, you need to be doing 2 things every week and measuring those. And that's thinking and talking, and what does that look like? Let's have you done any thinking this week, bro? Yeah, there's a lot of thinking. About what, when, where did you write it? Show it to me. If you can't show me what you've been thinking, well then, I'm going to call BS on that. Talking. I talk all the time. To who? About what? What have you been saying? What what's your vision? Cast it right now. Where are we going? Who are we?
Awesome. I use another metaphor all the time in my coaching to both individuals and organizations, that most days we put on our swimsuit, whether that's swim trunks or a bathing suit, and we get in the deep end of the pool and we tread water. We're exhausted. We've worked really hard. We've done a bunch of stuff. We're in the business doing the hard work. And I frame that without the thinking, which is metaphorically stepping out of the pool for a moment, not getting our swimsuit on and looking and going, where do we actually want to swim? Yeah. What are the things that are most important right now? What do we need to accomplish? And so there's a bunch of that. And so I will often inject that metaphor and go, this feels like we've been treading water for months. Yeah. Where do we actually want to go? Where do we want to swim? What's the action required? And that's all you're thinking. And then we need to move toward those things. We actually got to do the swim. And so that's the other side. Many organizations will understand where we need to swim. They're just not willing to do the work to actually get in the pool and swim. They're going to go, I'm treading water today. I'm treading water today. Yeah. And, that's another great metaphor for most entrepreneurs. Are like, man, I'm doing a bunch of stuff. I'm exhausted and there's no better results. Yeah. And that's there's all kinds of metaphors there. I think Vistage helps with that. We talked about that. That's a step out, peer-based, and them asking the questions because they're all living through the same thing, which is, what are you trying to do, dude? Mm-hmm. What are you trying to accomplish? What is all this for? And sometimes we get trapped in, well, this is a great idea. We're working on it. And you're like, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Because you're not accomplishing that. Yeah. So there's a bunch there that helps us. And again, coaches can help there. They can look and go, this looks like a bunch of exhausting work with no real action. Why don't we step out and figure out where we want to go before we get in the pool again? Yeah. So, there's almost, and, I catch myself. We all do that. We all do, hey, I got my head down doing this work. And then for a moment we pause and go, well, why am I doing this? Does this make sense? Why am I? So, and that thinking component of that is real. And, the other side of that is there's a lot of people that can think and then not act. And so we need to have this healthy combination of both, which is where do we want to swim? And we're talking pinnacle, scaling up, traction, all those. What's really great there is we can put metrics in place to go, are we making progress? Mm-hmm. Are we moving toward whatever we said we wanted to swim toward versus we're just doing the same old thing, getting the same old results. And plenty of organizations get trapped there and go, hey, we got a bunch of great ideas we can't execute. Or we're executing, but we got no new ideas. And the visionary / leader has to be able to do a little of both of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Even getting back to scorecard or executing on a weekly basis, kind of that visionary scorecard, which is can be kind of an oxymoron, a paradox. But all right, so this week you need to spend so many segments of your week thinking, pull away, get off on your own, and I have a tool around that. SOAR. Have we done an episode on SOAR?
Yes, we have.
I think we have. I don't remember which one it was, but it's a great little handy tool around how to actually pull away and think. Because a lot of times they don't know how to. They're so busy treading water. Like, wait, they feel uncomfortable, literally getting out of the water and thinking.
And that's where a Vistage, a Pinnacle day, a something says it's the pattern interrupt of I get the day to think.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you. I think the problem with most entrepreneurs is if not scheduled, won't happen.
Yeah, that's right. It's got to be.
So now I have a reason that it's on my schedule. And, the way I push my Vistage members is this is a day a month. If you can't make 10 days a year, you're failing.
Yeah, you're wound a little too tight there, buddy.
You're too important to the business every day. Mm-hmm. You're too deep in the pool. You're too blah, 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 blah. And the reality of it is then you are not doing any of that thinking. And I'm reminded of that all the time. One of the things that we've done in Vistage is when a new member or prospective member comes in, we do the typical quick introductions, and I go, hey, please share some of the major impact Vistage has had on you. And one of my members, I loved his answer. He goes, it's too many to name. He goes, but let me tell you about my very worst Vistage meeting. I'm like, okay, this will be good. And he said, we had a terrible speaker session I got nothing out of. He goes, but somewhere in the speaker session, the guy mentioned R&D credits. And he goes, I looked across the room, and most of the people were shaking their head up and down, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And he said, one of our guys runs a chemical company and does a bunch of that. He looked at me like, yeah. And he said, talk to me after the meeting. And he goes, that one thing was worth $250,000 to me that year. And he goes, that's my very worst Vistage meeting. And so that's if you're not exposed to that and don't have the opportunity to think and be exposed to other thinkers, you'll never see that. And so, that's one of many that we could all look at those and go, hey, surround yourself with smart people, surround yourself with people that'll challenge you, surround yourself with people that give you new ideas so that you can go think and then take appropriate action. So it's, where is that calendarized? Where are we doing that? And we all know people that go, I got it. I don't need any help. And sure, if you don't want any change.
Yeah, can't help you.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, that's one of the things I say often to folks, which I think is, to me, is one of the reasons coaches exist, is epiphanies are costly. Those points where you're like, I could have been, I love the Brian Regan thing. I could have been seeing things, and he's going to get his glasses.
And if I use that golf metaphor again, it's hard to see your own golf swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, well, is there something wrong? I don't know. I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm focused on some cue. Is it helping you? So, again, a coach can help. I have a coach. It's meaningful. Yeah. So
epiphanies are costly, but the wise find them for half price. Mm-hmm. The smarter you are, the cheaper you find them. So, and Vistage can be very helpful.
And it's one of many. I mean, there's plenty of places to get peer advisor, mentor, help, coach. I mean, there's all kinds of environments where that exists.
Do you have any exposure to EO?
Just a little, not a ton. I've
spoken like YPO. How are those different from Vistage?
Yeah, so I think the real difference, at least in I'll talk YPO, Vistage, EO, and there's plenty of others, is that the YPO EO is someone in your group facilitating, and Vistage is a paid professional. And the paid professional for most Vistage chairs is they've done what you've done, meaning they have been a CEO, they've done it, they've lived it. And the way I frame it is, I've sat where you've sat. I've made the mistakes that you've made. I understand that. And, the real power of Vistage is that I get 14 to 16 other people that are living the same experience and talk about it openly and really care about you. So over time, I mean, I look at my group and I go, I got guys that have been there 8.5 years. We've lived through the 8.5 years, and we've talked about everything you can imagine. So it was my very first, well, I'll talk about two things at my very first Vistage experiences. The first was what we call a kickoff event, where we're not even members yet. And I had the fortune that one of my guys, his issue, which he was willing to bring to the group, was how do I get my brother out of the business? So we talked about that a little while ago, and just remarkable insight for him. The group did well. Feel fortunate that he brought the issue. And if we jump forward, that gentleman, probably 6 years later, reports to the group that, hey, I just want to let you guys know I had a rough weekend. My brother was arrested, FBI investigation. He was arrested for armed robbery of 3 banks.
No.
And, 6 years prior, he had removed him from the business. And so he goes, I just want to thank you guys for helping me figure out how to do that, how to get him out of the business. And so, that was one great story, and there's plenty of others. But
Wow.
The second was in our very first live meeting, we check in and talk about business life. So, Vistage isn't afraid of the personal stuff. And one of my members says, well, in his check-in, and he'd been a long-term Vistage member in other groups, so he understood the whole process, and remarkably helpful. He said, in his check-in, my personal life's a 1 on a 10 scale. I'm like, okay, we got to at least ask what that is.
We got a hot one here.
Yeah, we at least got to talk about it. And he said, yeah, I haven't slept with my wife, meaning had sex with my wife, for the last 3 years. So you sit there, this is my very first Vistage meeting. I'm an untrained professional. I'll go back to that whole malpractice thing. You go, somehow I got to figure out how to navigate this. And what was awesome is just that comment set the tone for our group. And so what it said is, man, if he can bring that, I can bring anything.
Yeah.
And, for the rest of the time, we're able to dig into deep, meaningful issues. And so that's the power of a well-executed forum group, YPO. So all that can happen. I think Vistage does a really good job of training the chair, and there's a paid facilitator. So that's the big difference. And then Vistage does a really good job, and EO and YPO do the same, bring speaker resources and all the other stuff. But it's, that's the big difference, is you got somebody that then meets with you one-on-one every month, that coaches you. Yeah. And so there's this kind of group philosophy, but also a trained professional to kind of keep the group going in the right direction.
Yeah. What are some other other groups? I mean, I know of off the top of my head, one, C12, Christian-based.
Yep.
I'm sure there's a handful of others.
Yeah, if you look across and kind of just do the search for CEO peer groups, there's a bunch.
But is that the key search, CEO peer group?
Yeah, if you look for that, you'll find a handful in your area. And again, some of that's regional.
Yeah.
The national presence are the 3 that we've talked about, YPO, EO, Vistage, C12, Christian-based is everywhere. There's some executive committee, I think it's called. There's some others like that.
Yeah, there's one that I have some exposure to, CBMC, Christian Businessmen, something or other. And they have some kind of CEO peer-to-peer stuff that I have a couple clients that are involved in. They get a lot of value out of that as well. But, just getting in a room with some other folks that are just swimming in the same water that you are is a big value. To just have heartfelt conversations with some other folks that are struggling with some of the same stuff. Yep. Either they've been through it, or they're about to go through it, or they have somebody that they know and care about that's going through it. That's good stuff. What are some really, so you've probably seen folks as an advisor, you've seen some folks acting on some really bad advice. What's some of the worst advice that you've seen, like a client come to you and go like, hey, I was doing this thing, and you're like, who thought this was a good idea? Like, what are some really bad kind of, I don't know, what's some, it's kind of a general idea, but what's some bad advice?
Mark, I'm trying to think. I don't have any that jump to mind where I go, hey, here's somebody that told you to do something crazy. It's usually the opposite, that I'm getting no advice. I can't think of anything in my world where I go, hey, here's just really poor advice. Yeah. There's some subtle things in, my culture index work or others where someone's saying, hey, this is the ideal way to do things, or this is that. And so, there's plenty in the culture index world or personality assessment where people are going, hey, I'm only assessing my final candidates. And I'm like, that's crazy. You got find a tool that'll allow you to assess everyone. Because what you've already done is pre-selected. And I had some of that in my own experience, large corporate America. I didn't talk about all my career, but Roche, J&J, Bayer, a big company. We used a lot of that assessment with final candidate. And the problem there is you're already committed. It's kind of like pot committed. Like, all right, I've already gone down this whole path. And they go, hey, here's what you should worry about this person. And what you find is, well, I've already made the decision, so this is making me rethink my decision. And in Culture Index, we talk about filter and strength and interview a bunch of people that are square peg for a square peg job and choose the person you like. So there's nothing different about that. You're just preempting bad people that you're looking at. So that's an easy way to think about it. So I've seen plenty of that. And then, there's always I'll call it bad decision. But most of that, for me, I can't think of, hey, I got strong advice that said do this. It was more, that's just a poor decision on the facts that were available.
Yeah,
So,
you reminded me of something that Alec Broadfoot said. Was that our last episode or the one before? I can't remember. It's in my rearview mirror, so it just kind of drifts pretty quick. But he said something that to the effect of most entrepreneurs choose from a pool of one, where they're talking about recruiting, and tests and assessments and so forth. Yeah. They're already sold, and they kind of just they're trying to talk everybody else into this one person.
Again, I go back to it's subjective. I'm rationalizing, going, here are all the reasons why versus some objective measure for all hiring. Mm-hmm. And if you have that objective measure, you can go back and ask the questions. You can go say, does this person do this? And at least say things like in Culture Index that, well, we're looking for someone that is highly autonomous, able to make decisions. What we know statistically of this person is they're in the bottom 16% of all humans. So said differently is 84% of the planet is more autonomous, self-directed, willing to make decisions than this person. What questions should we be asking this person? I mean, so that's the way I frame it all the time. I go, I can't recommend it, and here's why. Yeah. They're in the bottom 16% of all people, and you said that the number one trait for this job is that they can act independently, drive results, hold people accountable, push results. Yeah. So what makes you think this person's capable of doing that? Did you assess that in questions? Have you looked back at their interview? Have you done reference checking? Yeah, right. I would assume if you go back and do that this is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that they'll go, but they have a long history of success. I'm like, where and how are the questions you should ask and understand that, and what did they drive individually, or what did the organization drive? So, it's an intentional focus, and you go back to think and ask questions. And the leaders that are more insightful, more intentional, more focused on where they want to go will have greater success. And I frame this today like that's simple and easy. I look back at my own career and go, there's challenges every day that get in the way of that. And it's, can we stop for a moment? And that metaphor of step out of the pool and think versus just keep treading water. And so that, I know Alex as well. And that is absolutely true. Most people go, these were the two candidates that applied. We interviewed them, and this is the best. And I'm like, well, that's a low bar. And so, I always frame and I go, most of us aren't Google, but Google has 7,000, at least they did, whether or not they still do or not, 7,000 unsolicited applications per day. So they're not asking, there's not a job posting, but they're getting 7,000 resumes a day going, I want to work at Google. Mm-hmm. And so I go back to that, create a magnet that you're getting that. And, you framed, am I thinking, am I working, am I asking? And so, one of my big ahas early in my CEO stints was I need to be talking to a bunch of people saying, one day I want you here. That's vendors, that's people, and so it's, if I go back to that baseball metaphor, it's a farm team mindset of I'm always looking for talent. And where could it come from? I have all kinds of examples in Culture Index that I had a client, and it's one of my favorite conversations ever. They called me and said, what do you think about this profile? And my question always is, for what role? They said, sales. I said, awesome profile. I said, how do you know the person? I said, well, they're at the wait staff of our golf course. Nice. And I said, well, this person can sell. I said, you're selling high-end chemical applications can you teach them? They said, yeah, we think so, and we can take a flyer. And within a year, she was in the top 5 of 40 sales reps.
Yeah, that's great.
And you look at those things and you go, like, that's what the tool can help you, and that's what insight can help you. That's what can I think outside the box, and most can't. Most are going to go, I'm going to go interview people that have sold chemicals, and I'm going to get the retreads from other companies that weren't capable of selling, and I'm going to be enamored by they've been doing this for 15 years poorly, and I'm going to hire them.
Yeah.
You go, okay.
That's a good example of a measurable, by the way, for a visionary, which is have conversations with future hires. How many have you had this week? And this is from who, right? And he's just saying, hey, your scorecard needs to be hire so many people this year.
If you go back to that CEO, what should they be doing in their day job? I have that same CEO I talked about, visionary, that is a daredevil, knew that he couldn't do the day-to-day. One of his quarterly rocks every quarter is 5 important conversations with potential hires or potential partners.
Yeah, that's great.
And he just measures himself saying, "Have I had 5 of those this quarter?"
Yeah, perfect.
So, I mean, it's that. It's and I always frame it as, am I fueling the magnet? Am I making it more compelling to come here?
Yeah, that's really good. A lot of times in a session, to kind of like tee that conversation right there up, which is, hey, nobody's doing this. We'll be working through some bad hire as an issue, right? And you saw my smack tool over here, and that's the tool I use to facilitate those conversations, problem solving conversations. This came out of IDS, by the way, and I got sick of facilitating conversations. I identify, discuss, solve. So identify, discuss, solve issues, roots to issues, but they would leave the root part out, right? And we'd have somebody, some person as an issue, and the symptom part is like, well, I'm so frustrated. This happened, that happened, the other happened, and it's an acronym. The move back, which is, all right, well, what do you think's causing this symptom here? And a lot of times they'll get stuck right there. They have no way to actually,
I'm causing it.
Yeah. And so I'll kind of tee up. I'll just kind of throw out there like, well, we got this problem. So who hired this person? Raise your hand. In the vision of the
who's provided inadequate training? Who's provided inadequate insight? Who's not giving them any expectation?
Sure.
Who's
and
not
somebody be like, well, I did. I'm like, give me your keys, buddy. No more hiring for you. Like, or go get hiring lessons or something. Like that's a great maybe root issue is you keep hiring these people and you don't know how to do it. Well, who are the last 10 people you hired? Just write them down. Guys, help me out, and put a list on the board of the last 10 person, Bob here, or Sven, our guy Sven. Sven is our avatar leader. And his last 10 have been train wrecks. It's like, buddy, I think the root is you don't know what you're doing when you're hiring people. What do you say you up your game there?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time in culture indexes. Sometimes the requirement is fog a mirror, and it should be a lot more than that. It's got to be, again, are we, and, I use this all the time in rocks and other things, is what evidence do we have?
Yeah.
Because often there's no evidence, and I'm like, well, then why are we moving this direction? Yeah. So what evidence do we have this person's going to be a superstar?
How often does HR push back on this stuff when you're facilitating?
Yeah, a lot. In general, we look and go, hey, HR's involved, but I, all the time, and this is learning for me early in my career, I was like, great, HR, let's go, let's bring it up the chain. I now say things like, if visionary leader's not in the room, neither will I be. So if they're not there for the workshop, if they're not there for demos, if they're not there for discussion, there's no reason to do it. So that was tough learning because early on, and this is all our wisdom we gain, which is, hey, there's a lead, let's pursue it. And I'm like, but if I don't have visionary, there's no reason to pursue it. So HR sees it as a headache. HR sees it as fewer candidates. HR sees it as work. And, the best HR see it as, oh, this helps me find super talent. This helps me win. This helps me drive retention. This helps me drive better performance. This helps me whittle through 100 resumes. But a lot of HR departments is I got 3 people, so I need to hire one of these 3. And instead we go, none of these 3 are good. And so I catch myself all the time saying, hey, Dave, what do you think about this profile? Going, or these profiles? I go, I can't recommend any of them. Keep looking. I go, I know you hate that answer, but that's the right answer. Now, and I'm quick to frame. I go, that doesn't mean one of these won't succeed. What it says is statistically, it's a long shot.
Yeah.
So why take that shot? I mean,
yeah, if it works, let's shoot you're layups. Lucky, right?
Yeah, I go, let's shoot layups. Let's go find layups that 85 out of 100 we're going to make. I go, let's go find those people. So, again, and I frame all of it as just more data and it's more objective. And so if we can frame everything that way, and same with our business, if we look at how do we scale, what are the measurements, what evidence do we have, and I don't mean to, because I'm far from that, which is it's all got to be locked down and known. We want evidence that the things we're doing are working. And often we don't. We just go, well, let's try the next thing. So,
yeah. I love the quote from Deming, in God we trust, all others must bring data.
Correct.
That was him, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And, so it's like, we need some evidence here. Like, I can tell you feel like this, or you feel like that, or you're saying these things. But what evidence do we have of that this is going to work, or, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I get hung up in facilitating these situations in an HR. And HR's, great. I mean, we need HR big time. But a lot of times they get painted in this corner of, and it's not their doing. I think a lot of times the leadership team puts them in a difficult place where, they're really abdicating or just punting all of this recruiting weight over there to this poor lady who's like, I'm the HR, SHRM professional, whatever. And a lot of times they didn't really, the organization needs something beyond, or they have HR doing something beyond what they signed up for, which is casting a vision for the business. And they signed up to make sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed,
Yeah, run a process. And if we get them to run a process, great. Let's define the process. Let's walk through how we want to interview. How do we reference check? And so, same, we talk all the time about reference checking particularly. And HR says, hey, we call and we got, employment confirmed. I'm like, well, there's a better way of doing that. Yeah,
and they'll say to me, well, we can't do that. Well, I don't know how. I don't know what you can and can't do. I'm just saying, could you please kind of do some due diligence with their former employers? No, we can't. Oh, okay. Well, then there's this pause.
I mean, I'll give you my 2-minute version of that. That reference checking starts with who do we want to talk to, and we have the candidate reach out to those people.
Yes.
So once the candidate does that and says, Shane's interviewing for a job, Mark, you were his last boss, I tell Shane to schedule a call with Mark. Mark calls me and I say, hey, thanks for taking time today. I'd like to do a quick reference check. I start with Culture Index. Hey, this little assessment says that Shane is this, and this. Mark, have you found that true? So it's just a high level, and we'll go, hey, this is a remarkable worker, independent, can solve problems, locked down, urgent, gets stuff worked done, and does it perfectly. Is that true? Yeah. Great. And then I talk about the weakness. What you'll often get right away is I only can confirm employment. That's a common kind of phrase. And so I train everyone we deal with to say, I understand that. That happens all the time. What I'm wondering, Mark, is have you ever heard of anyone being sued for giving a positive reference? And I commit to not saying the next word. And so what they have to do is go, well, no, I've never heard of that. And I go, well, great. So if this is a positive reference, I hope you can answer a couple questions. No, I only can confirm employment. So I still get that all the time. And the way I frame it is, well, I really appreciate your time today. I told you what I see in Culture Index. I'm excited about hiring this person. I just have one more question. You don't have to answer it. You don't have to say yes or no. You just have to make a noise that is affirmative. And I joke and I go, that can be drop the phone. That can be bark like a dog. That can be sniffle. I don't care what it is. But knowing what you know about Shane, for this role, would you rehire him? And if they pause and I hear nothing, I go, well, I will have to consider this an other than positive reference. And then you have what you want. And so, I play all the time, struggling entrepreneur. Most understand that. I go, hey, I cannot afford to make a mistake. I hope you understand that. Shane's role is critically important for me. I cannot hire and make a mistake. I hope you'll help me. Most understand that. So if you get HR, they're going to confirm employment. If you get the business frontline leader and you appeal to that, they'll most often play that game. And most often when you ask never heard of getting sued for giving a positive reference, have you? And they go, no. I go, great. If this is a positive reference, I hope it is. Let's talk. And then they will open up. And so most HR are just aren't going to do that. They're not trained to do it. They don't know how to do it. They call in and they get the HR department. They go, Shane worked here from October 1st, 2019 to 2022, and that's when he worked here. Okay, great. That doesn't help me. So there's ways around this if we're more insightful. So
and I would say that points to mastery. It points to mastery as an interviewer, as a recruiter type, and attracting great people to this organization is a huge role. Again, going back to the visionary, like, buddy, you should be spending a lot of your time getting great people to come to our movement here. And so maybe we'll let HR sort them out, but man, you got to get the flow coming here.
And again, I always look and go, it's the hiring manager's responsibility, not HR's. So
yeah. Very interesting stuff. I really appreciate your insights on this. Appreciate your experience. You have such an interesting pathway to all this. Love that you're part of Pinnacle. I'm
thankful every day as well. It's been an awesome community.
Yeah, Pinnacle's great community. Big shout out to Greg Cleary for dreaming this thing up.
Absolutely.
So enjoyed our convo. Looking forward to future convos about this stuff, and really enjoyed the lead on this cigar too. By the way, again, what is this? I can't keep
Placencia Alma.
Yeah, that looks really good.
Which I was drawn to as well because Alma is my grandmother's name. So when I first saw this and saw the positive review, I'm like, I got to try it. So,
that's cool.
Yep.
And is Placencia the
brand?
The brand? Okay.
Yeah, they have quite a few.
There's a lot
cigars. Yeah.
Our favorite cigar shop had a lot.
Yeah. And as you said, kind of top of the line all the way down to common cigar. This is one of their best. So,
how do you think this compares to the? Is it the Padron? That's the one we.
Yeah.
That's our kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
special.
It was the same price, Mark.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Again, it depends on which. It depends on which Padron.
Yeah, it was the same price.
Yeah. So this is it's one of my favorites. It's in the.
It looks a little more robust.
Yeah.
Than the one we.
What is it, like $25?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
A little less.
Okay, $20.
24.
Like 24. Okay. Shane took his Colby. We had, Kimberly Dyer on here.
I'm a number 8.
He's an 8 fact finder.
Yeah.
So when you say give or take, I have to actually say, Shane, give or take $5. All right. And
I got to round up.
Yeah.
Dude, I am so low on fact finder. I don't even remember what my fact finder is.
Yeah.
So it's 2.
It's 2. I think
no, it's not 2.
I think it might be 3.
It was 3.
Come on, man.
4?
Throw me a bone.
Yep.
All right, David Quick, real pleasure hanging out with you.
Same, Mark. Enjoyed it a bunch.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Take care.